on?
We're on.
Good morning, Facebook. Why are you late? Where y'all been? I was here at 10 after trying to talk to you. Where were you?
And I was here too.
Yeah, and everybody was here. So we don't understand why you're late showing up. But anyway, we're going to talk. We're sharing the fact that apparently there are no mistakes. I thought I was in Leviticus chapter 20. After the fact, I found out I was in Deuteronomy chapter 20. I liked what was in Deuteronomy chapter 20, so I'm staying with Deuteronomy chapter 20. I'm going to talk to you today about victory thoughts. If we need to go back to Leviticus in the future, we will. But right now, we're making strides, man. We're going through the Bible quick. We just jumped right over Numbers, but we will go back to Numbers. Anyway, I want to talk to you about some principles that are in this chapter 20 of Deuteronomy. When I figured out that I had made this human error, I thought, either I needed this or somebody that's going to be here Sunday or on Facebook needs this. I find it extremely important, and the longer I live under the auspices of the thought processes I've been using for the last 10 years, I find more and more evidence that this is really the way life works. You are a product, and your experience is a product of your thoughts. The way you're thinking is what you're producing. So I want to talk to you today about victory thoughts. I think we should have those kind of thoughts. It's so easy to fall into a negative mindset. You can be practicing positive thinking and have a positive outlook and approach to life day after day, and then in a moment you can consider the next thing in front of you and immediately take a negative bent on it. So we're having to exercise discipline. This is why we're called disciples. We are disciples of Christ. Now that's not, we're not starting a new thing here. That is literally the truth, because Christ is a word that applies to the universal Son of God. Christ is the word that references that. When we found out by the writings of Paul that Christ is in you, then we understood that the universal Son of God inhabits every human being on the planet. Every time a new child is born, another baby is born, that baby, according to John chapter 1, is lit by the light of Christ. So the animating life force in every human being is the Christ force, is the Christ life. So by virtue of that, all of us are able to claim sonship or child of God status. Each one of us have that relationship to God. Now, I think it's safe to say that most people don't know that. And I go back to a thing I used about 10 years ago when I first started delving into this I am relationship with God. If you had $1 million in the bank and you didn't know it, how much good would it do you? You could starve to death having $1 million in the bank that you knew nothing about. I think this is what's happening in our world today, is that people are operating thinking they're somebody they're not. Whenever we find out who we actually are, it dramatically changes our experience. When we find, and I said, what do you mean find out? I mean, when you discover the truth about yourself, that you are literally animated by God, that God is in you, that you are of divine origin, and that you are having a human experience in this plateau. When you know that, if you're anything like me, and you have to be because we come from the same place, it changes you. It changes the way you think. When you change the way you think, you change the way you experience. You start having an experience that is commiserate with your thoughts. So I want to help you today by giving you some principles that come from the 20th chapter of Deuteronomy that are victory thoughts to help you have a good mindset no matter where you are, no matter what you're experiencing, no matter what you're facing at this point. You can have victorious thoughts about your circumstance. I could just take the time and read chapter 20, but I'll just kind of go through it really quickly here. Here's what it says. When you go out to battle against your enemies and see horses and chariots and people more numerous than you, do not be afraid of them. For the Lord your God is with you, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. Now this is obviously a story that is directed to the Jewish people who have escaped the bondage of Egypt. And they've done so by divine help. But what about you? What about me? I didn't experience this, but I have had an experience. I've had an experience that is this metaphorically, and so have you. The fact that you are listening to what I'm saying right now means that you have survived to this point. And the fact that you have made it to the point that you now occupy, you have done so in spite of the fact that along the way, there have been probably multiple times that you didn't know if you were going to make it. You didn't know if you were going to make it through the trial that you were facing. You didn't know if you were going to make it financially. You didn't know if you were going to make it emotionally. You didn't know if you were going to make it relationally. There are all kinds of things that have happened to each one of us to this point, and yet here we are. You say, so, well, it just happened. Does anything just happen? Doesn't everything have a cause and an effect? Whether you want to look at something from a spiritual point of view or a scientific point of view, whichever way you want to look at it, you basically will come to the same conclusion, that everything is the result of cause and effect. There's something that moved this. It didn't just happen. It happened because. It happened by cause. Thus, cause and effect. So, here you are. Here I am. There is those of us that, even though we have survived many things, the next thing that we're facing is God. Oh my God, how am I going to get through this? And you know what's funny? People who don't even believe in God say, "Oh my God." It's really hilarious. But whenever you're faced with whatever it is that you are looking at right now, there is a principle that belongs to you by virtue of the fact that you have originated out of divinity. And that is simply this: do not be afraid of it. Do you know, I think it's safe to say that meeting a challenge is not lethal. Now, not paying attention can be. You know, there have been people who have been killed crossing the street. By their age, their health condition, they shouldn't have died on this particular day, but they didn't pay attention. They were oblivious to where they physically were, and as a result of not paying attention, they walked out in front of the bus and boom, that was it. And now people are crying over the too soon departure of somebody, not somebody that died meeting a challenge, but somebody died meeting a bus that they weren't paying attention to. Paying attention is something that each one of us can or not. You can pay attention, or you can walk around in the cloud zone all the time. That's up to you. No matter how many times your teacher told you, or your mama told you, or your daddy told you to pay attention, you know, they can whip you and tell you to pay attention, and you might do it for a minute or so. But if you don't want to pay attention, that's that's something that nobody can take away from you. You have a right to not pay attention. But not paying attention can be lethal. But meeting a challenge requires us to pay attention. And meeting a challenge, I submit to you, is not nor ever will be lethal. Every time you meet a challenge, you end up being in a better, higher, more aware place than you were before the challenge. So there's a divine principle here. Whenever you go out and what is in front of you looks like it's a lot bigger than you, do not be afraid. And here's why. God is with you. You say, what do you mean God? Listen, if you were born of God, if God is in you, if Christ is in you, then of course God is with you, right? So the logic of this, you say, well, I don't believe in the Bible, and I don't believe in God. Do you believe in science? Will you accept a scientific point of view? Everything is energy. Everything is the same energy. Everything is born of energy. Everything emits and emerges out of energy. Energy is everything you see vibrating at a different frequency, at various frequencies. So you physically are energy that is vibrating at a particular frequency. So since you are energy, and science says that whatever you're looking at is also energy, and is the same energy that you are vibrating at a different frequency, then I have a word for you. As energy, looking at energy, do not be afraid of yourself. Do not be afraid of the energy that is in front of you. You're of the same stuff. And the stuff you're of is a result of thought process. And what you're looking at is energy that is been formed by thought. We could go into a big science lesson today and show that the evidence that has been proven scientifically backs up what I just said. So if you're turning this off because it sounds too Sunday schoolish to you, reconsider and do it from a scientific point of view. You do not have to be afraid of what's in front of you. You shouldn't be afraid of what's in front of you. As a matter of fact, fear is not even natural for you. Fear is something that we thought up. Now, here's another verse of Scripture for you. And I'll do science every time too, but this is what I know more about. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but you have been given a spirit. You've been given the Spirit of God. What did God give us? But love, power, and soundness of mind. So if you're acting crazy, it's because of the way you're thinking, because you weren't born that way. You weren't born crazy. You didn't come here crazy. If you're crazy today, you have learned crazy. You've been practicing crazy thoughts. Well, they say stupid is as stupid does, crazy is as crazy does. You know, I know some people close to me that have really good minds but have not used them. And as a result of not using their good mind, they're crazy. And I mean, they've been certified as crazy. They're certifiable. But I know them. And I know it's not true. But I know that the one person I'm thinking of right now has practiced craziness so much that it's become a reality in his life. But it is completely unnecessary, and it could completely be undone. So every facet of our life experience, whether it be our health, whether it be our relationships, our finances, what else is there? I mean, doesn't that kind of cover? You know, you got a financial part of your life, you got a relational part of your life, you got a physical part of your life. All of this then is interpenetrated by your emotional aspect, True? I mean, there are emotions that are associated with finances, emotions associated with health, emotions associated with relationship. All of these things that you experience, you're experiencing them based on the way you're thinking. If you enter into a relationship wondering if it's going to last, wondering if it's going to work, I wouldn't call that a victory thought. Would you? You know, if you're entering into a business venture very dubious about whether or not it's going to succeed, I wouldn't consider that a victory thought. Would you? So if you go to the doctor and you're scared to death he or she's going to find something wrong with you, I wouldn't consider that a victory thought. Whatever you are entering into, there is a way to enter into that with a victory thought. First of all, I see something in front of me much bigger than me. I am not afraid of you, and I'm not afraid of you because I understand something. I understand that what made me made you, and what made me and you is benevolent to both me and you. I love the story that John Randolph Price told about the day he received a threatening letter from the IRS because he had written a book and had received some handsome royalties, and I guess he had spent the money, and the IRS was demanding somewhere around a $30,000 payment immediately from him. He had practiced Christianity in the conventional way for many years, but he had discovered what I'm sharing with you. And he went into prayer and meditation. He just got quiet and got in his God place and presented this dilemma. And he said, after some time of quietness, the voice spoke to him and said, I am the IRS. And he instantly understood what that meant to him, and he got up. He was no longer afraid. He dismissed it, and he went about his business. A day or so later, from a place completely unexpected, a check came to him in the mail that was for a little bit more than the IRS was demanding. He deposited the check, paid the bill, went his way. He learned something, though. See, he learned what Paul meant when he wrote in this book. If God be for us, who can be against us? Right. Because everything is God. There isn't anything. You can't touch anything. You can't see anything. You can't imagine anything that is not sourced by God. Every expression that exists is an expression of one kind or other of the only power, of the only source, of the only substance, of the only energy there is. It's God. And so once you understand that, no matter what you're seeing, you have a right to not fear it because it's in you and it's for you. So no matter what face it's wearing out in front of your physical expression, it has not come to harm you, because here's something: we don't think this, we know this. We know that all things work together for good. To them that love God. What do you mean love God? I mean that have their mind on God, that have a God awareness. Once you get a God awareness, then you absolutely understand that nothing can show up in your expression to harm you. Even if it looks harmful. It can't harm you. It has come to help you. It's come to put you in a better place. Whether it be relational, health, or financial, or if I've missed anything, that too. When you go out and you see something bigger than you, the book says, don't be afraid of it, because the Lord is with you. Meeting a challenge is not lethal. Not paying attention can be. He says, then the officers shall speak to the people, saying, what man has built a house and has not dedicated it? Let him go and return to his house. lest he die in the battle, and another man dedicate it. Also, what man is there who has planted a vineyard and is not eaten of it? Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man eat of it. And what man is there who is betrothed to a woman? He's engaged, but is not married. Let him go and return to his house, lest he die in the battle, and another man marry her. Let's hold that for a moment. Understand something. Victory thoughts. Sometimes it's not your turn. When I was born in 1952, my dad was on the brink of being, what do you call it, when the military gets you? Drafted. He was about to be drafted for the Korean War. But because I was about to be born, they wouldn't take him. He went through all the deal as though he was going to go. And then they find out in his paperwork, you have a child about to be born. It was just before I was born. They wouldn't take him. They sent him home. It's not your turn. This is not your deal. Where did that idea come from? I suggest to you it came from this chapter right here. There are times when it's appropriate for you to do battle, and there's times when it's not your turn to do battle. When it's your time, you'll be made aware of that. When it's not your time, don't fight against it. Go home. Go do whatever else there is in front of you to do, and get victory in your mind. Get a winning thought in your mind. There's just sometimes it's not your turn. And there are people that have tried to jump into fights. My uncle carried a scar to his grave because he was in a bar and a man was beating his wife. And when he stepped in to stop the man from beating the wife hit him in the face with a diamond ring and ripped his face. It wasn't his time. There are just times that you're not supposed to stick your finger in it. You're not supposed to put your face there. You're supposed to be somewhere else. And when it's that time, do that. The next thing that the officer says, if any of you are afraid, go home. And it goes on to say, because others might become afraid because of you. See, fear is contagious. And the weird thing about it, it's not even real. But when somebody starts really hyperventilating and says, I'm afraid, I've seen it happen. You've probably seen it happen too. And then other people start becoming really moved by this. And it's like you can create a panic in a public place, and a lot of people get hurt because one person was afraid. What does that mean to me? It means that I should not allow fearful people to socialize with me. Are you here? Amen. If you're constantly with people and every time you talk about a new venture or a new relationship or new this, that, and they start being negative and fearful about it, get away from those people. They don't deserve to be with you, and they don't need to be with you. They're not good for themselves, and they're not good for you. You can't help them if they've decided to be afraid. But if you've decided you're not going to be afraid, then don't socialize with fear. Don't do it. Send it away. When the officer says, now anybody here? You afraid? Go home. We don't need you here. Okay? What is that? It's a victory thought. It's, I didn't come here to be afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to let your fear infect me. So, move on. All right? So, when you see something bigger than you, don't be afraid. When it's not your turn, go home. When fear shows up, get rid of it because it's contagious. Every time, here's number 4. Every time that you are in a conquering mode and you approach whatever it is that you are in the process of conquering, make an offer of peace. There's all kinds of situations we could bring up that are just part of our life experience. There are times when you are going to move forward and there's a potential of opposition through people in front of you. make an offer of peace with them. If they will accept that offer of peace, then you can cohabitate. If they won't, win. Do not think about kowtowing. Do not think about running. Do not think about turning back. Listen, when you get a vision for where you want to go in your life, you know this. Everybody's not going to agree with it. I don't care what it is. I don't care what it's about. It can be a business. It can be church. It can be anything. It can be family. And somebody's going to be out there to disagree with you. Make an offer of peace. If they won't accept it, move ahead and conquer. Do not change your vision because somebody didn't agree with it.
Amen. Oh, amen.
Okay? That's number 4. Always make an offer of peace. And if they decide they're going to fight with you, win. Period. Just win. There was a saying around our house when I was growing up. My dad said, I'm going to tell you something. Because there was 3 of us and we get loud sometimes. He said, I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to have peace in this house if we have to fight for it. So you can know that. We're not going to have all this nonsense going on. I see parents that just throw their hands up because their kids are hollering and screaming. They can't go out to eat. They have to have a help to go grocery shopping. One child, and they can't do anything. That's crazy. I'm talking about a human being this big is letting a human being that big dictate their life. And say, I don't know what to do. Yes, you do. You absolutely know what to do. Don't come at me with that stupid garbage. That's ridiculous. That's dumb. That's not New Age. That's not brilliant. That's not enlightened thought. That's just pure stupid. You don't know what to do? And you want me to tell you what to do? No, you're not going to make me stupid too. You know what to do. Do it. Take care of it. Do not let a child dictate whether you're going to go to a restaurant or not, or whether you're going to be able to buy groceries. That you've got to leave them with somebody like they're a dog or a cat that is uncontrollable. You can control your dog and cat. And a lot of people do better with their dogs and their cats than they do with their kids. It's like, come on, stop being stupid. Stop being crazy. That's the meanest I've been in a long time. Right? You hadn't heard me be mean like that, have you? No. But you know what? Sometimes it's just like, enough already. And I get tired of hearing that silliness. Fix your stuff. And stop being a wimp. Hey, I'm talking about victory thoughts. So we can't be wimpish today, right?
Exactly. That's right.
That was number 4. Number 5. This is grotesque metaphor. But here's what this concludes with. Of the cities of the people which the Lord gives you as an inheritance. In other words, when you know you have space that is yours to occupy and other people are in it, other things are in your space, this scripture says, you shall surely destroy them. Now look, he gives a list. The Hittite, the Amorite, the Canaanite, the Perizzite, the Hivite, the Jebusite. Man, if it ends in an "ite," you got to get rid of it. Just as the Lord your God has commanded you, lest they teach you to do according to all their abominations which they have done for their gods, and you sin against the Lord your God. In other words, what does this have to do? We're not going to be barbaric, but metaphorically, you need to be barbaric when it comes to negative thinking. When negative thinking people try to occupy the space that your dream has promised you, you cannot make nice with it. You can't see if you can negotiate with it. I submit to you that at any level, whatever level you want to talk about, evil should not be negotiated with. Evil should be eliminated, annihilated. If you just try to hurt it, it will survive and it will come back and hurt you. You cannot tolerate a coexistence with evil. Not in your mind, not in your body, not in your home, not in your business, not in your state, not in your country. You cannot tolerate evil. Trying to get along with evil is like sticking your hand in a lion's mouth, hoping it will not bite you. It's ridiculous. Let's throw away our politics. Let's throw away our religion. And let's get some good old common sense. How about that?
Yeah.
And let's start living our life with victory thoughts. You're bigger than me. I'm not afraid of you. You're made out of the same stuff I am.
That's right.
I'm not going to fear you. I don't fear you. It's not my time to fight today, so I'm going to go home. But when it's my time to fight, you don't want to fight me. You might think you do, but you don't. Because even if physically you look bigger than me, you made out of the same stuff I am. And if you are a bully is no match for a small guy that is determined. I'll put my money on the small guy every time. I could go into all kinds of stories, and I won't do that. But I'm going to just leave that there. When it's not your turn, go home. Don't associate with fear. It's contagious. And you can start out a day not being afraid and talk to fear too much, and you'll catch it.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Get away from it. Every time that you're moving in a direction that requires you to be a conqueror, make an offer of peace. If it's accepted, cohabitate. If it's not, win. And number 5, let no negative thought. You see, fear and love cannot live in the same house. Perfect love casts out fear. How about that? You think love is nice? You think love is nice? It don't tolerate fear. Love has no toleration for fear. It will kick it out every time. Get your mind occupied with thoughts of victory. Do not even entertain a thought of failure. Don't even entertain the possibility that I might. Yeah, I see this posted all the time. Say, if money were no object, what would you do? Well, money is an object. It's an object to be moved from here to there, over here. You know, I know what they're saying, but all the time if you're on Facebook, you see this all the time, and the premise of these questions and these postulations is fear. Why are you going to be afraid? What are you going to be afraid of? Listen, once you understand that you are life, that's what you are. You're made, listen, you were made in the image of God, therefore you are life. You were made in the image of God, therefore you are love. That's what you are. You're made out of it. You are made in the image of God, therefore you are peace. You're made out of peace. Not pieces, peace. So you are the substance. You are of the substance of life, love, and peace. So if you operate in any fashion that violates any of those 3 things, you're calling disaster on your physical expression. But you can't even kill yourself. You can destroy your physical expression, but you can't die, darling. Because you made in the image of God, you are life. Life has no opposite. People say, well, death is the opposite. No, death is the opposite of birth.
That's right.
Life has no opposite.
Amen.
So there is nothing. Do you get that? If I am life and life has no opposite, nothing can oppose me. That's good right there. That was worth the whole lesson right there. So I leave that with you. I bless you with the truth of your own self, the truth of your being. You are God's baby. You are God's child. You have a right to call God your Father. You are His child. And the same in the same manner that you would not harm your child, God has no thought of harming you. Cannot, will not, won't go there. Everything God is for you. Amen?
Amen.
That's it. May the Cowboys win.
Yes. Victory belongs.